Hey besties! Welcome back to Flossy Success. I am here to help you build your dream academic life with a touch of coffee, books, and Gilmore Girls energy. Today's video is for every girl who dreams of studying under the autumn leaves, becoming her best self, and yes, reading like Rory Gilmore. Rory wasn't just a bookworm. She was the kind of girl who made ambition look elegant. Her reading list? It's legendary. And today I'm going to show you every single book that appeared in Gilmore Girls, known famously as the Rory Gilmore reading list. Let's romanticize learning, get inspired, and maybe even start our own Rory reading journey. Are you ready? 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 is a dystopian novel set in a totalitarian society where the party, led by Big Brother, exercises extreme control over every aspect of life, and the protagonist, Winston Smith, struggles against this oppressive regime. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain is an American novel published in 1885. It is narrated by Huck Finn, a young boy seeking freedom from his mother. Huck escapes down the Mississippi River with Jim, a runaway slave, encountering various adventures along the way. Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain follows the life of a mischievous boy named Tom Sawyer in the Mississippi River town of St. Petersburg, Missouri. Tom gets into various troubles and adventures with his friends, such as whitewashing a fence, running away to an island, falling in love with Becky Thatcher, and witnessing Joe. The novel is a celebration of childhood, humor, and freedom. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll is a whimsical tale that follows a curious young girl named Alice who tumbles down a rabbit hole into a fantastical world brimming with eccentric characters and surreal adventures. In Wonderland, Alice encounters a host of peculiar beings: the anxious White Rabbit, the grinning Cheshire Cat, the cryptic Caterpillar, the madcap Mad Hatter, and the tyrannical Queen of Hearts, among others. Her journey is marked by constant transformations. She grows and shrinks in size, questions her identity, and navigates a world where logic is turned on its head. All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward. All the President's Men is a non-fiction account by Washington Post reporters Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward that delves into the Watergate scandal. The book reveals the intricate web of corruption and cover-ups that plagued the Nixon administration, starting with a seemingly innocuous burglary at the Democratic headquarters and leading all the way to the highest echelons of power. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. The novel The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon is a historical fiction that follows the lives of two Jewish cousins, Joseph Joe Cavalier, a Czech artist and magician who escapes Nazi-occupied Prague, and Sammy Clay, a Brooklyn-born writer. They rise to prominence in the comic book industry during the golden age of comics in the late 1930s and 1940s. An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser. An American Tragedy is a 1925 novel by American writer Theodore Dreiser. The novel is based on the notorious Brown in 1906 and the trial of her lover Chester Gillette. It explores the dark underbelly of the American dream and follows the ill-fated pursuits of Clyde Griffiths as he desperately seeks success and social status. Set in the 1920s in Kansas City, Chicago, and small-town New York State, the novel tells the story of how Clyde Griffiths kills Roberta Alden during a boat trip in the Adirondack Mountains. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie is a gripping story that follows the activities of 10 individuals who are invited to a secluded island. As they gather, they soon discover that their mysterious host is absent, and a haunting recording accuses each of them of a hidden crime. The novel explores themes of guilt, suspicion, and the application of justice. The story takes place on Soldier Island, an isolated rock near the Devon coast. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. Angela's Ashes is Frank McCourt's Pulitzer Prize-winning memoir that recounts his harrowing yet often humorous childhood growing up in poverty. Born in Brooklyn to Irish immigrant parents, Frank's early years are marked by hardship, especially after the family returns to Limerick, Ireland, following the death of his infant sister. The memoir paints a vivid picture of 1930s and 1940s Ireland, where Frank faces relentless poverty, the deaths of several siblings, and the emotional toll of his father's alcoholism. Despite these challenges, Frank finds solace in storytelling, literature, and his own resilience. His mother, Angela, becomes the emotional anchor of the family, doing everything she can to keep them afloat. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Anna Karenina is a novel by Leo Tolstoy that depicts the efforts of its titular character to escape an unhappy marriage to her older civil servant husband and pursue a love affair with a young and dashing Count, Alexei Vronsky. The story centers on an extramarital affair between Anna and Vronsky that scandalizes the social circles of St. Petersburg and forces the young lovers to flee to Italy in a search for happiness. But after they return to Russia, their lives further unravel. The setting depicts the opulent society of Imperial Russia, providing a backdrop for the characters' moral dilemmas and personal struggles. The Archidamian War by Donald Kagan. The Archidamian War by Donald Kagan is the second volume in his four-part history of the Peloponnesian War, and it offers a detailed analytical account of the first 10 years of that conflict between Athens and Sparta. Kagan takes a chronological approach, examining the political, economic, diplomatic, and military developments that shaped the war. He presents the strategic decisions made by both sides, highlighting the alternatives they faced at each stage. One of the book's most notable contributions is its critical reassessment of Thucydides' portrayal of Pericles' strategy, challenging the long-held view that it was entirely justified. The Armies of the Night. History as a Novel, The Novel as a History by Norman Mailer. The Armies of the Night by Norman Mailer is a novel that chronicles the author's adventures during the October 1967 anti-Vietnam demonstrations in Washington. The book then returns to the same ground for an objective history of the Battle of the Pentagon, bridging the gap between novel and history. The Art of Fiction by Henry James. The Art of Fiction is a critical essay by Henry James, published in 1884 in Longman's Magazine. It was written as a rebuttal to Fiction as One of the Fine Arts, a lecture given by Sir Walter Besant in 1884, and is a manifesto of literary realism that decries the popular demand for novels that are saturated with sentimentality or pessimism. The Art of Living by Epictetus. The Art of Living by Epictetus, as interpreted by Sharon Labelle, is a modern distillation of Stoic wisdom that offers practical guidance for living a virtuous, resilient, and fulfilling life. Drawing from Epictetus's original teachings, recorded by his student Arion in works like the Discourses and Enchiridion, this book presents 93 concise principles that help readers navigate life's challenges with clarity and composure. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The Art of War is a text on military strategy and warfare. It was written in ancient China around 500 BC and has been considered the definitive text on the subject ever since. The book uses pairs of opposing concepts to outline the sometimes devastating consequences of the leader's decisions and actions, reflecting the binary nature of the forces at play in war, and indeed the whole world, as represented by Yin and Yang. As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner is a novel that follows the Bundren family's struggle to bury Addie, their wife and mother, in her hometown of Jefferson, Mississippi. The book explores themes of death, family, and identity, with each family member narrating their perspective, creating a complex and engaging narrative. Atonement by Ian McEwan. Atonement by Ian McEwan is a novel that explores themes of love, war, childhood, and forgiveness. The story begins with Brian E. Tallis mistakenly accusing Robbie Turner of her cousin Lola, effectively ruining Robbie's life. The novel delves into the idea of personal atonement and owning up to past mistakes. Autobiography of a Face by Lucy Greeley. Autobiography of a Face by Lucy Greeley is a deeply moving memoir that explores the intersection of illness, identity, and beauty. Diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma at age 9, Greeley underwent surgery that removed part of her jaw, followed by years of chemotherapy and reconstructive procedures. But the physical pain was only part of her story. The Awakening by Kate Chopin. The Awakening is a novel by Kate Chopin, published in 1899. The novel depicts a young mother's struggle to achieve personal emancipation in the oppressive environment of the postbellum American South. The novel was originally titled A Solitary Soul. It was widely condemned for its portrayal of infidelity when it was first published. The novel is about Edna Pontellier, who is stifled by her marriage. A passionate and fulfilling affair makes Edna question everything about her life. Babe by Dick Kingsmith. Babe the Gallant Pig is a children's novel by British author Dick Kingsmith. Tells the story of an orphaned piglet named Babe, raised on Hogget Farm. Initially intended for bacon, Babe surprises everyone with his talent for sheep herding. Nurtured by Fly, a kind sheepdog, Babe seeks to become a sheep pig. Backlash: The Undeclared War Against American Women by Susan Faludi. Backlash: The Undeclared War Against American Women by Susan Faludi is a book that explores the anti-feminist reaction following women's advancements in society. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist deconstructs myths surrounding women's independence and examines how media, politics, and popular culture have undermined these achievements. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress by Dai Sijie. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress is a semi-autobiographical novel by Dai Sijie. Set during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, it follows two teenage boys who are sent to a remote mountain village for re-education. The story explores their relationship with a local seamstress and their discovery of a forbidden treasure trove of Western literature. Bambi, A Life in the Woods by Felix Salten. Bambi, A Life in the Woods by Felix Salten is a novel that follows the life of a young deer named Bambi as he navigates the challenges and beauties of living in the forest. The story explores themes of nature, growth, and the dangers of the wild, including the threat posed by human hunters. Bel Canto by and Patchett. Bel Canto by and Patchett is a novel that tells the story of a disparate group of people taken hostage in the vice-presidential mansion of an unnamed South American country. Amid the chaos, unexpected bonds form among hostages and captors, leading to moments of beauty and consolation through music and shared experiences. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. The Bell Jar is a novel by Sylvia Plath, first published in January 1963 under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas and later released posthumously under her real name. The novel is a thinly veiled autobiography that chronicles a young woman's mental breakdown and eventual recovery, while also exploring societal expectations of women in the 1950s. The story follows Esther Greenwood's internship at a popular women's magazine in New York City, and her subsequent depression and contemplation of suicide. The novel explores themes of identity, feminism, and transformation. Beloved by Toni Morrison. Beloved is a 1987 novel by American novelist Toni Morrison. The novel is set in the period after the American Civil War and tells the story of a dysfunctional family of formerly enslaved people whose Cincinnati home is haunted by a malevolent spirit. The novel examines the destructive legacy of slavery as it chronicles the life of a black woman named Seeth, from her pre-Civil War days as a slave in Kentucky to her time in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1873. The novel won the 1988 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. Beowulf by Anonymous. Beowulf is one of the oldest surviving epic poems in the English language, composed by an anonymous author between the 8th and 11th centuries. The story follows Beowulf, a heroic warrior from Geatland, modern-day Sweden, who sails to Denmark to help King Hrothgar rid his kingdom of a monstrous creature named Grendel. Beowulf defeats Grendel in a fierce battle, tearing off the monster's arm with his bare hands. But the victory is short-lived. Grendel's vengeful mother attacks next. Beowulf dives into her underwater lair and slays her with a magical sword forged by giants. The Bhagavad Gita by Anonymous. It unfolds on the eve of a great war at Kurukshetra, where Prince Arjuna, a warrior of the Pandava clan, is paralyzed by moral confusion and despair at the thought of fighting his own kin. The Bielski Brothers, the true story of three men who defied the Nazis, built a village in the forest, and saved 1,200 Jews by Peter Duffy. The Bielski Brothers, the true story of three men who defied the Nazis, built a village in the forest, and saved 1,200 Jews is a book that tells the story of Tuvia Bielski, Alexander Zasel Bielski, Zeus Aaron Bielski, and Asael Bielski, four Jewish brothers who established a large partisan camp in the forests of Belarus during World War II. The book recounts their resistance activities against the Nazi occupation of the country and how they saved 1,200 Jews from the Nazis. Bitch, in Praise of Difficult Women by Elizabeth Wurtzel. Elizabeth Wurtzel's Bitch, in Praise of Difficult Women is a provocative and unapologetic exploration of women who defy societal expectations. Through 5 extended essays, Wurtzel examines historical, literary, and pop culture figures, ranging from Delilah and Marilyn Monroe to Hillary Clinton and Courtney Love, who have been labeled difficult, dangerous, or bad. A Bolt from the Blue and Other Essays by Mary McCarthy. A Bolt from the Blue and Other Essays is a vibrant collection of Mary McCarthy's sharp, witty, and fearless literary and cultural criticism, spanning her career from the late 1930s to the late 1970s. Edited by A.O. Scott, the volume showcases McCarthy's incisive takes on everything from American realist playwrights and fashion magazines to the works of J.D. Salinger, Italo Calvino, and Gustave Flaubert. The essays reflect her deep erudition and unflinching honesty, often dissecting hypocrisy and pretension in both politics and the arts. Highlights include her reflections on A Streetcar Named Desire, Pale Fire, and Madame Bovary, as well as her commentary on the Watergate scandal and the ideological tensions of the Cold War era. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley is a dystopian novel set in a future society where technological advancements and government control ensure a superficial sense of happiness and stability among the citizens. Human beings are genetically engineered and conditioned for their roles in a highly stratified social hierarchy. The story takes place in London, in a highly advanced society where scientific advancements have eradicated disease, war, and poverty. The novel explores themes of freedom, individuality, and the cost of societal conformity. Brigadoon by Alan J. Lerner. Brigadoon is a musical with a plot that revolves around 2 American tourists who stumble upon a mysterious Scottish village called Brigadoon. The village appears for only 1 day every 100 years, and its inhabitants are frozen in time, living in the year 1746. Candide by Voltaire. Candide is a satirical novel by Voltaire, published in 1759. It follows the naive young man Candide, who experiences relentless misfortune despite his belief that he lives in the best of all possible worlds. Voltaire uses humor and satire to critique blind optimism and expose the world's harsh realities. Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer is a vibrant tapestry of medieval life, told through a storytelling contest among a group of pilgrims journeying from London to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury. Written in Middle English between 1387 and 1400, the work is framed by a general prologue that introduces 30 diverse characters, from a noble knight to a bawdy miller, a devout prioress to a worldly wife of Bath. Carrie by Stephen King. Carrie is a horror novel by Stephen King. Plot revolves around Carrie White, a friendless high school girl from an abusive religious household who discovers she has telekinetic powers. The story follows her life and the challenges she faces. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Catch-22 is a satirical novel by American writer Joseph Heller, published in 1961. The work centers on Captain John Yossarian, an American bombardier stationed on a Mediterranean island during World War II, and chronicles his desperate attempts to stay alive. Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger is a novel that follows the adventures of 16-year-old Holden Caulfield after he has been expelled from prep school. Confused and disillusioned, Holden searches for truth and rails against the phoniness of the adult world. The Celebrated Jumping Frog by Mark Twain. The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County by Mark Twain is a tall tale about a man who bets on anything and wagers that his frog can outjump a stranger's frog. The story explores themes of culture clash, deception, and the complexity of human nature. First appeared in the New York Saturday Press in 1865. Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. Charlotte's Web is a classic children's novel by E.B. White, published in 1952. The story takes place on a farm and follows a pig named Wilbur and his devoted friend Charlotte, the spider who saves his life by writing about him in her web. The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman. The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman is a drama set in an all-girls boarding school. The story revolves around 2 headmistresses, Karen Wright and Martha Doby, who face a malicious rumor spread by a troubled student. The false allegation leads to tragic consequences, revealing the power of lies and societal prejudice. Christine by Stephen King. Christine is a novel by Stephen King that tells the story of a haunted 1958 Plymouth Fury named Christine. She captivates high school outcast Arnie Cunningham, leading to obsession and deadly consequences. As Arnie's personality changes, a love triangle unfolds, drawing in his best friend Dennis and girlfriend Lee. The novel addresses themes relating to obsession, fate, and objectification. Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is a tale of Ebenezer Scrooge, a miserly old man who is visited by the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. Through these encounters, Scrooge learns the importance of generosity and kindness, ultimately embracing the Christmas spirit. Cinderella by Brothers Grimm. Cinderella is a classic Grimm's fairy tale about a young girl who overcomes adversity to find true love. The story follows Cinderella, the only child of a wealthy man and his beloved wife, who is forced to stay at home while her stepmother and stepsisters attend a festival where the prince will choose a wife. Cinderella sneaks to the festival, and the prince is enchanted by her, but he does not know her true identity. Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. A Clockwork Orange is a novel by Anthony Burgess, published in 1962. It is set in a dismal dystopian England, where a juvenile delinquent named Alex undergoes state-sponsored psychological rehabilitation for his aberrant behavior. The novel explores themes of free will, forced morality, and human nature. Code of the Woosters by P.G. Wodehouse. Code of the Woosters is a farcical tale of romantic mix-ups, grand larceny, extortion, and other antics at a posh country house in Gloucestershire, England. The novel features Bertie Wooster and his clever butler, Jeeves, as they navigate a comedic disaster involving an antique cow creamer, romantic entanglements, and a would-be fascist dictator. The book was published in 1938, a time of political uncertainty and social change in Britain. Collected Stories by Eudora Welty. Collected Stories of Eudora Welty is a comprehensive collection of her short stories, showcasing her talent for capturing human emotion and life in the American South. The book spans several decades of her writing and features engaging narratives, diverse characters, and deep insights. A Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare. Comedy of Errors is a farcical play by William Shakespeare. Tells the story of two sets of identical twins who were separated as infants and are later reunited in Ephesus. Play is driven by coincidence, slapstick humor, and mistaken identity. Compact Oxford English Dictionary. Complete Novels by Dawn Powell. Complete Novels by Dawn Powell, published in 2 volumes by the Library of America, brings together the best of her fiction, sharp, satirical, and deeply observant. Powell was a master at capturing the contrasts between small-town Ohio and the bustling, often absurd world of Manhattan from the 1920s to the 1960s. Her Ohio novels tend to be more melancholic and compassionate, portraying characters grappling with frustration and longing. In contrast, her New York novels are exuberant and incisive, filled with writers, social climbers, and schemers navigating the city's literary and artistic circles. Complete Poems by and Sexton. Complete Poems by and Sexton is a collection of her 10 volumes of verse, including the Pulitzer Prize winner Live or Die, as well as 7 poems from her last years. Sexton's innovative approach to confessional poetry invites readers into her most intimate thoughts and struggles, addressing themes of love, loss, and mental illness. Complete Stories by Dorothy Parker. Complete Stories by Dorothy Parker is a collection of her short stories, which demonstrates that her talents extended far beyond brash one-liners and clever rhymes. Many of the stories, originally written for magazines, have never been collected before. Parker was a legendary figure in New York's literary landscape, known for her satirical poetry, audacious prose, and implacable criticism. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole is a darkly comic tale set in New Orleans. Follows the misadventures of protagonist Ignatius J. Riley, a lazy, overweight, misanthropic, self-styled scholar who lives at home with his mother. The novel is a rollicking ride through eccentricity, misadventure, and biting social satire. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court is a satirical novel by Mark Twain, first published in 1889. tells the story of Hank Morgan, a 19th-century resident of Hartford, Connecticut, who is inexplicably transported back in time to the court of King Arthur. Consider the Lobster, and other essays by David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace's Consider the Lobster, and Other Essays is a sharp, eclectic collection of 10 nonfiction pieces that blend cultural critique, linguistic analysis, political commentary, and ethical inquiry, all delivered in Wallace's signature footnote-laced, hyper-articulate style. Title Essay, originally published in Gourmet magazine, begins as a seemingly straightforward report on the Maine Lobster Festival but quickly morphs into a philosophical investigation of animal suffering. Wallace asks readers to confront the ethics of boiling lobsters alive for culinary pleasure, challenging assumptions about food, morality, and human empathy. Contact by Carl Sagan. Contact is a 1985 hard science fiction novel by American scientist Carl Sagan. Deals with the theme of contact between humanity and a more technologically advanced extraterrestrial life form. Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas is a classic adventure novel that follows the story of Edmond Dantes, a young sailor who is falsely accused and imprisoned. The novel explores themes of betrayal, revenge, and the consequences of unchecked ambition. Cousin Bette by Honoré de Balzac. Cousin Bette by Honoré de Balzac is a novel set in 1840s Paris. It revolves around Bette Fisher, a poor, plain, and overlooked spinster. Bette plots revenge on her socially superior relatives, including her beautiful, saintly cousin Adeline and the philandering Baron Hewlett. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Crime and Punishment is a novel by Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky, first published in 1866. The story follows the life of a student named Raskolnikov, who decides to commit the perfect crime as a way of philosophically proving his superiority over others. Raskolnikov kills a pawnbroker for no apparent reason and receives a summons from the police but is relieved to learn that he is not a suspect. Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber. The novel The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber is set in Victorian London and follows the story of Sugar, a 19-year-old prostitute who dreams of escaping her brutal life and rising in society. The novel also features other intriguing characters, including William Rackham, an egotistical perfume magnate, and his extended family. Crucible by Arthur Miller. Crucible by Arthur Miller is set in Salem, Massachusetts during the 1692 witch trials. Play begins with Reverend Parris discovering his daughter Betty and other girls dancing in the woods, leading to a wave of hysteria and accusations of witchcraft. Central to the story is John Proctor, a local farmer who struggles with his guilt over an affair with Abigail Williams, one of the accusers. As the trials escalate, Proctor fights to expose the truth and save his wife, Elizabeth, who has been falsely accused. Ultimately, the play explores themes of mass hysteria, reputation, and the conflict between individual conscience and societal pressure. I hope you liked this video. Stay tuned for the next parts. Don't forget to subscribe and like. See you next time.
Like it's synonym for uninformed. I suck.
Honey,
13 million volumes?